And throughout our newscast today, we'll be telling the story of Jackson Ingram. He's a low country boy who had a terrible accident, and we'll find out what happens next. Alyssa Hyman begins our coverage of Jackson's miracle.
It was a late summer afternoon just 2 years ago. Jackson, Trevor, and Adam Ingram were playing and swinging in their Beaufort backyard.
If you and I were on a swing, we'd probably swing this way, back and forth. But we're not 11-year-old boys. 11-year-old boys think they can swing this way, side to side, but that strains the structure. And they were on a swing much larger than this one, and what they didn't know at the time, it was already starting to corrode in the salty air.
And the whole thing just collapsed, and the big part of it came down on Jackson's head.
Trevor was knocked out too, but his injuries were minor. It was Jackson that was in deep trouble.
He wouldn't cough, he didn't have a gag reflex, so we knew we had to put a breathing tube in him.
Well, all of a sudden, in those few seconds, the Ingram's lives changed forever. The story continues in the 7 o'clock hour of our newscast as he's rushed to Savannah's Memorial University Medical Center in hopes of saving his life. In a Beaufort backyard, a swing set collapsed and the heavy beam of it fell on Jackson Ingram's head. The family reacted just like you would.
And Adam was out there with them. He came running in, just screaming at the top of his lungs, but couldn't tell us what had happened.
I just remember leaving the house and going out to the backyard, and as I came around the corner of the house, I saw him laying there pinned under that big heavy swing set.
In minutes, there was an ambulance at the house.
Seeing them look at each other and sort of give each other this eye signal, like, you know, we got to do something more here.
The ambulance radioed for Lifestar to fly Jackson to Memorial. Ashley and Heather followed in the car.
Which is a long drive when you're driving to try to see if your son has made it alive to the hospital.
All right, well, the kids are out playing on the swing set, and suddenly things go horribly wrong. The heavy beam of a swing set fell on Jackson Ingram's head, and what happened in the next hours and days would determine the rest of his life.
Lifestar sprinted to Beaufort.
He was bleeding out of his ears. He was bleeding out of the injury on his head, bleeding out of his nose and his mouth. And so he tells me it's grim.
When we got there, the child was only moving when we caused pain. He was unresponsive to everything. So we knew that he was in critical condition, and we knew that he needed a trauma surgeon as well as a neurosurgeon.
The crew got quickly in the air for the 12-minute flight back to Memorial.
The paramedics asked us if we had said a prayer. We said yes, and he said that's basically what you need to do because there's nothing we can do.
But in the ER, there was little cause for hope.
Dr. Lytle and Dr. Sue came and sat down with us, and they said, it looks really bad. It looks really bad.
Typically with patients with this type of an injury and a GCS of 4, we're looking at about a 20% chance of survival. Whenever he came into the trauma bay, he was noted to have unequal pupils as well, which probably decreased the likelihood of a full recovery to somewhere between 5 and 10%.
And we don't know if he's going to make it. We're just going to have to watch and see if he makes it through the night.
We're going to have more for you on this story tonight at 5 and 6, including the Memorial Medical Team's amazing efforts to push Jackson toward his miracle. Wow.
In 2012, 11-year-old Jackson Ingram suffered a traumatic brain injury as a result of a swing set beam that landed on his head right in his backyard in Beaufort.
Alyssa Hyman shows us how they were dealing with the situation at Memorial Health.
For a couple of long weeks, the efforts of the hospital team were focused on keeping Jackson with us
and slowly getting him out of the woods, so to speak.
His mom, Heather, was ever by his side, even though he was completely unresponsive.
The day they took Jackson off the ventilator, it was about 2 weeks after he'd been in, and when you're taken off of the vent, sometimes your airway will have some swelling. And I just remember watching him, and it seemed like he was fighting for every breath. I couldn't leave because it had been such a hard day. I did not want to leave to go sleep. And she finally, about 2 o'clock in the morning, said to me, "He's doing better, and you can be assured that I'm going to take care of him just like it was my own child."
The time came to repair the damage to Jackson's head. Dr. Will Thompson is the only pediatric neurosurgeon in the area.
Dr. Thompson spoke with the family at length and decided that we did need to surgically repair this depressed skull fracture.
The surgery was successful, and as he left Memorial, there was cause for hope.
The day before he left for rehab, finally decided to follow commands for us, and that was just such a blessing.
The improvement Jackson made at Memorial would lead to a complete recovery, and we're going to show you more of Jackson's miracle. It's tonight on The News at 6.
Sonny Dixon here with some of the stories we're still working on for The News at 6. Thieves, creative in a bad way, using stolen credit cards to steal a lot of smokes here and apparently sell them up north. Our Sean Evans will have that for you. Plus, 28 August, that's the date known for many things in history, but for one particular local family, it is the day that everything changed for the better. The conclusion of Jackson's miracle. Those stories and more straight ahead. The News at 6. Well, Jackson Ingram was playing on his swing set back in 2012 when a 100-pound beam fell right on his head. Through emergency surgery and then with pediatric neurosurgery, the staff at Memorial University Medical Center in Savannah was able to get Jackson back to a point where rehab was possible.
And we pick up our ongoing story with the Ingram family's journey to Atlanta for a new mission of wait and see.
When we left the hospital in Savannah, Jackson left on a gurney and he could do nothing for himself.
If somebody would have said to me at that point, Jackson can come home with you right now and he's going to live, but this is what you're going to get, I would have said, deal. So, you know, anything better than that's a blessing.
In history, August 28th is the day of Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, the day the first jet airplane flew, the day Mark Spitz won his first gold medal. But in a room in Atlanta, something far greater was happening for Heather, Ashley, and Jackson Ingram.
He started eating that day and wanted food and was gesturing for things and taking sips of things and chewing things up and wanted stuff to eat and was swallowing it all and just thinking, those things are kind of connected, the swallowing and the talking. I said, Jackson, can you say mama? And I hadn't heard his voice for 2 months. And he said, Mama.
Come on, Judy. And Jackson's thoughts returned to the weighty issues of being an 11-year-old boy.
I want to go home, want to see my brothers, want to see my dad, want to see my dog.
And that is Jackson's miracle. Alyssa Hyman, WTOC News.
Well, Jackson is back at school, back playing sports, and back to being a now 13-year-old boy. If you would like to support the Children's Hospital at Memorial, you can call 350-GIVE, or you can log on to memorialhealth.com/foundation.
Wow, that's amazing.
Isn't that something?
Miracle.